has a signing service. So we have been talking through social media, and she reached out to me and I reached out to her. So I wanted to go ahead and welcome you on to our webinar.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure being here and connecting with you guys.
Of course. So a little bit about your business. How long have you been around? And then as far as the signing service, could you give a little bit of an explanation or like a general, how long have you been doing that as well?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been a notary since 2022, coming around to 3 years, almost four. And it's been a journey. It's definitely been an experience. Definitely learned a lot of things that I was not aware of before. I am a real estate transactions coordinator and a title processor as well. So a lot of what I do has overall to do with real estate. And I've been a signing service owner for almost a year now. And it's been definitely a different experience from being a notary itself. It's a different perspective, and you see things on a little bit of a higher rank. And I love remote online notarizations. I think is like the greatest invention ever. And I focus on just that as a notary. So I'm very happy to share the things that I know and that I learned and how it works for me.
Sure. And then, so just as a little bit of a background, and especially for anyone that, for social media and when we put everything out there, I never know where it's going to go. So do you do typically only remote online notarizations or do you do are you a nationwide signing service or do you only do remote for your signing service?
Yes, so I do both. I do nationwide signing service
Hmm.
for real estate title companies,
Hmm.
and I do remote some of them for some of my clients who I started doing it from before. I just love and enjoy doing it, so I stick to just doing remote and just reassigning in-person signings to other notaries nationwide.
Perfect. Yeah. So that makes sense because some of it, we have title companies that'll come, I'm sure that's the same thing with you, title companies that'll come to you. And then, they're like, hey, do you have someone in Arkansas? So then that's good to have you as a resource, in
Thank
case
you.
that does come up. So to delve a little bit more into some of the common mistakes, because that's what we made the theme for this one.
Okay.
So for the common mistakes of a remote online notary that you typically see that come into your signing service.
Yes, I definitely can list hundreds of mistakes because each transaction is completely different. But I can just, let you guys know what I re see the most, especially in remote signings. Things that maybe I did in the beginning and things that I learned, and now that I look back and I'm like, oh, you know what I mean? Um, and the number one, and I'm sure you can back me up on this one, is knowing your state laws. Like that is priority, that is non-negotiable. You always have to stay on top of like, you bookmark your Secretary of State website and consistently be on top of the updates because things change and you want to make sure that you're doing things legally. So that's definitely one of the things that it's like my number one priority. Definitely stay on top of that. And another one that I can mention is using non-compliant video tools for your remote online notarizations.
Mhm.
Yes, I've seen notaries who are like, yes, I'm a notary public and I can handle this through Zoom or through Skype. And I'm like, you need to have compliant video tools in order to perform a remote online notarization because it goes beyond recording the call. It's beyond, journaling. It has a lot to do with identification and your KBA and biometrics. So it definitely has to do a lot of that, and I highly recommend for notaries out there to look for the state approved RON providers and look into them and their pricing and the accommodations and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Definitely.
then just as a little bit of a plug, you can always check out Pro Notary. So this is typically going to be uploaded onto our YouTube and everything like that. But we do have a lot of different features, and especially for teams.
Hmm.
If you do have a team of notaries, that's always something good to look into.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But as far as is there any other errors or anything that you think that notaries should watch out for?
Yes. Skipping verification steps, never, never, ever, ever. Whether you're doing KBA or biometrics, you always have to verify the identity, not only for the security of the signer, but your commission is on the line. Your commission and the title company that's right behind you, the lender and all that stuff. Skipping verifications, even if you've done signings with the signer in the past, can have legal consequences, and that's something that you definitely don't want to overlook.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, I have seen some things where sometimes it comes back, and then, you don't want to be one of the bad apples that creates new legislation or, new policies because, you're not following the guidelines. So, yeah. And then as far as a signing service, when you are looking to work with other notaries, what do you typically look for as far as remote online notaries?
Yes, so I definitely want to see your experience on your bio, whether you're in signing orders, SnapDocs, or whatever platform you're using. I want to see you. I want to see a good headshot, a good professional photo. I want to see how many languages you speak. I want to see what's your experience, what other services do you provide. I want to see the platforms that you use because sometimes there's platforms that don't provide certain identification verification programs or systems that I am looking for. So it saves me time rather than me picking up the phone and saying, "Hey, Katie, what platforms do you use?" It's already on my profile.
Mhm.
Yeah, saves a lot of time. Definitely want to see your and the amount. And that's pretty much like the highlight of what I look through.
Okay. And then as far as, and I'm putting you in the hot seat because we didn't talk about this beforehand, but as far as errors and omissions, is there a certain price point that you kind of recommend for when you're looking for different notaries?
I honestly feel safe and comfortable anything above 25,000 because that's what the title companies are looking for. Well, at least the ones that I work with, they're
Mhm.
like, okay, I need them to have a minimum of 25,000, and that's generally what I look for. Yep.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. That's good. And then as far as working with the different notaries, is there anything of like a cheat sheet or, a pep talk that you give to them before you send them off on their first run? Like, is there anything that you kind of go over or I guess it kind of would probably go over in signing order, but is there any kind of
Yeah,
prep?
so usually when I send out an order, there are instructions on there, but I
Mhm.
usually call the notary and say, hey, I need the signer to feel completely comfortable with doing this process. This is, a new system, a new way of signing for a lot of homeowners and a lot of people out there who don't do this on a regular. So definitely giving them a call, letting them know, hey, I will, this is Edith. I am your notary for your signing for blah, blah, blah. I'm going to be sending you a link through text message and email, whichever you feel. You know what I mean? Like I want them to map it out for them so it's an easy process for the signer. And it benefits the notary so much because when I was pulling orders for myself through signing order, I will not only have a great experience for the signer, but I would also have them leave me a review based on their experience with me, and that will help me with potentially other signers and other clients in the future.
Yeah, that's a great idea because sometimes like it's always for me, it's not even necessarily about the best notaries. It's sometimes about well, I mean, I obviously don't want errors to come.
Yeah.
But you can be the best notary in the entire world and fill out all of the documents, but if you're not patient with the signers, then I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. I typically will not be asking for that again.
Yeah.
And so like for the notaries, just be aware that sometimes signing services or title companies or law firms, when they're contracting you, can ask for the entire recording. So if you are like, obviously we always want to be our best, but this is something that's being recorded. So if you are rolling your eyes or sighing or, not being your best,
Yeah.
um, they will see
Definitely.
that.
Definitely. I have a title company that's based off in Tampa,
Hmm.
and I do all of their remote online notarizations. And for every single transaction, they ask for the video recording.
Yes.
Now, a lot of title companies or law firms will ask you for the video recording for their records, for
Mhm.
them to say, hey, like if it ever comes back to them, you're recorded and you agreed and this and that. But you need to have a great experience for the signer. Not only you need to be patient, but you need to explain to them how to use the system because this is relatively new for them.
Mhm.
And your background, the noise, the space where you are, they need to feel very comfortable
Mhm.
with you because some people can be like, think that this is scammy or
Yes.
since it's something new, you know what I mean? They want to feel comfortable. So you have to make it possible.
Yeah. Yes. And like some of the things, and just to kind of piggyback off of that, some of the things that you'll typically have to walk signers through is like how to apply a signature. And sometimes it's like, well, everybody should be able to do that. That's not the case.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
so, I mean, you as the notary might not think that you're expected to kind of walk the signers through. But as far as any of the notaries that I work with, you're 100% expected to walk the
Yes.
signers through because if they get frustrated, this is where half the patience comes from. If they get frustrated and they decide not to go through with the notarization, one, there's long-term issues that can stem from that within the closing. But then also it can damage the relationship between the signing service and the title company, and it could be the notary's fault. And so
Yeah.
just, that can be a really big piece of revenue for these signing services and just reputation. Um, so yeah, sometimes patience goes a long way.
Yes, definitely. I've had signers that they're not tech savvy
Mhm.
and you need to literally break it to the very bottom for them.
Yes.
Hey, click this and the button looks is this color and it's top left, right, top left, bottom right, bottom left. You have to literally, and that's where the other mistake comes from. You need to know your platform.
Hmm.
I recommend notaries to use one platform and have another one as backup, but to be familiar with the platforms that they're using and always be up to date with like updates and upgrades and all that stuff because you want to know the experience that the signer is having and how their screen looks like because it definitely is different than our screens. Um, and you definitely want to be familiar with it so you can guide them around the platform when they're doing a notarization overall.
Definitely, because there's nothing worse than, and especially, okay, so the other thing is to do it from the signer's perspective on their phone and then on a cell phone, because there's usually a pretty big difference. And then from like our software perspective, like we sometimes have to put things in different places for when you're
Yes.
doing like a cell phone versus a big screen. And then for you, do you typically, I think I know the answer, but do you recommend the signers do everything on a cell phone or on a laptop?
So if they do have a bigger screen, I highly recommend them to have a bigger screen. This facilitates them to be able to read the documents that they're signing because it's just in a bigger screen or whatnot. And it also allows them to have visibility to all the features of the platform itself.
Yeah, perfect. And then my next question, do you typically run into a lot of, have you run into fraud for either your signing service or as a remote online notary?
No.
Yeah.
No, I've had situations where the signer will fail their questionnaire
Okay.
on a platform. Per se, I use proof, and they failed for some reason. So I typically try to manage it to the best of my ability. I
Mhm.
don't automatically say red flag, this is a
Yeah.
scam. You know what I mean? I try to do biometrics, or I try to do the verification through Blue Notary, for say, and try to verify them in in a different way where I can then determine, okay, this is definitely a scam. He failed all my KBA, biometrics, wrong person or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, title company, this is what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like if there is a title company that is listening or anything, um, use the notaries that you're working with as a partner. And if there's something that is happening within your file or within the signing that you think is a red flag, let the notary know. Because I've had it happen where, there's a signing and it goes through and I had fraud on one of mine. It didn't go through because remote online notarization is the GOAT, but is in general, they are like the signer wouldn't come onto the screen. And so as much as I said, in order for me to be able to do this, I have to see you within the session. They did not want to come on. And so I had to reach out to the title company. And for anyone that's kind of new, if
Hmm.
you can't have the notarization go through, you think that it's the end of the world. But title companies do not want to have notarizations go through if they think that it's fraud, because that has long-term ramifications in like monetary issues if you put it through regardless. So, like, basically trust your gut and your intuition because I called that title company and I was like, hey, I'm calling this because the signer won't come on. This is one of the requirements. I'm not going to do this. And they're like, oh, thank God, because I had some red flags and I wasn't sure. And in general, like I got to the point where it was like, then tell me, tell me if you have something that you think it could be fraud. So yeah, just so that way, as much as all the notaries will, typically take all of the steps that you can, it's easier to kind of get something, a closer look at things that if title company thinks that there might be something a little bit fishy about the situation.
Yes, yes, definitely. I can agree with that. Red flags are real. You need to
Hmm.
be on the lookout for them and always be on high alert. I've had signers, like I said, that failed certain questions and things like that, but thank God I haven't had a situation where it's like red flag scam alert. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Um, but definitely be on the lookout. There are people out there who are looking to scam for a living. So we
Yes.
definitely have to, especially in real estate,
Yeah.
just because there's so much money involved, we definitely want to be careful with that.
Yeah, definitely. And then like so my other question for you is because you do both, do you take work from the general public as well, or do you typically only work with, I mean, like not excluding anyone, but do you typically only work with real estate and title companies, or do you also take work from individuals?
That's a great question. So I've been working as a transactions coordinator since 2019,
Hmm.
and from there I've evolved and made connections with different businesses and stuff, but it's all related to real estate. So I've tried to only keep myself in that portfolio where I just do real estate transactions, but it's not that I will say no to general public. If somebody reaches out to notarize, I'm really big about digital marketing, and I know that a lot of people see my stuff and people will reach out,
Hmm.
translations, I-9 verifications, apostilles, and I'm always open to doing these things as long as it's within the legal box.
Yes, within the legal framework. It's like we're always follow your state guidelines.
Yes.
Um, and then okay, so that is you do have a really good social media presence because that's
Yeah.
you do. You have really good like all of your things, the way that you promote yourself is very like I'm professional, I know what I'm doing, like I'm available, I am going to be reliable. So like just from the general framework of like what you present, but like I think of it kind of in my head as social media is now the resume that people look at.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes, 100%. I'm really big about that as well as to my students also. I'm
Hmm.
like, listen, right now, you're not posting on social media. This is totally free marketing. You
Exactly.
sit You sit and you create a few templates and you schedule them to go out on a certain day, a specific format. It takes you a few minutes. It might take you a few hours at first, but it's free marketing. You're I cannot count how many opportunities have come to me through social media.
Yeah.
And especially if you're a visual consumer,
Hmm.
I'm a visual consumer and I like to see the things and what people think about the product that I'm buying and things like that. And I want to offer that to people, especially for people who are analytical and all that stuff that want to, see the ups and downs and everything. So I feel like having something visual, everything in one place will definitely help your business skyrocket.
Yeah, because like eventually, exactly what you said with the signing order and like deciding who you're going to work with as far as like the notaries. Like if you are a notary that's watching this that does not have a headshot, go and put a headshot in literally all of the signing service, like all of the companies, because like I didn't really think of the implications until I started having to find notaries. And then I was like, oh gosh, I don't want to send someone that I don't know. I need a face to a name. And then it helps if there's someone that like, has a good bio and everything like that. But it's the same thing as social media. Because and this is I literally run into this all of the time for people that aren't in our industry or that don't understand social media and they're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I am generating leads. I'm generating leads. I'm making more money for my family." That's like what are you doing? And it's something that's nice because like if uh, uh my social media online is we're under Pro Notary, but then for my own is Notary SWFL. And for the most part, for those reels that I make, take maybe 10 minutes to make while I'm like watching cartoons with my family. So it's like I'm stuck here anyway. I might as well do something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but your social media is really, really good. Do you have, and I know you said students, do you have any resources for like if some, I mean, you can always plug yourself if you have resources for training or anything like that?
Yes. So because I post very often and people often see the behind the scenes of private closings, I get a lot of notaries that ask, how do you do this? What platform is that? What do you suggest? And I've created this one-on-one training session where I focus on what your problem is and I try to figure the problem out for you, tell you what's wrong and what's right and um, what you aren't doing to succeed in the industry.
Yeah.
And the people that I'm currently working with, hands down, they started seeing results immediately because they just weren't setting things up as they had to, pretty
Hmm.
much. Hmm.
Yeah. And that's great to have as a resource because sometimes it's so tricky to try and find out and it's like, well, what am I doing wrong? Like I see all these other people and then, sometimes it just takes someone that's either a couple steps ahead or, like maybe a year growth and then it's like, oh, that's because you don't have a link to your Instagram on how to be able to book you or stuff like that. Oh, here, wait, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now? I just got excited. So there's things like that where it's like the simplest little things. And then I have like students are like, oh my God, I don't know why I'm not getting any appointments. People are not booking me. And I'm like, okay, what is your marketing strategy? They're
Mhm.
like, oh, I'm not doing any marketing.
Thank you. Yes.
Girl. I'm like, that's the problem. And
Yeah.
then I start explaining things to them, breaking it down. I'm like, you have to have a script for this. You have to have templates for this, do that, reach out here. Um, reach out to your local title companies. People, no, some notaries, especially the new notaries, they are afraid
Mhm.
of reaching out directly to title companies and law offices and stuff. And I'm like, that is direct business. If you have a title company that's 5 minutes away from your house, that is somebody that you definitely want to have as your client because they need you and you need them. They're.
Exactly. And then sometimes I get people where they're like, well, everybody's already marketed to them. And I'm like, why do you think McDonald's is still marketing? they know, like everybody knows that there's a McDonald's,
Yeah.
but you need to stay top of mind. And then things change where like someone could be like, you know what, I don't like Burger King. I am looking for a different, different thing. But like it translates over to a title company. A title company could have been burned by
Yes.
a notary that, wasn't the best. And then it could have been something where they moved out of the state and they're looking for a new
Hmm.
title company, and then up walks a new notary that is very, very, relatable and has a good personality and presents well and brings over, maybe a plant or two or something. So yeah, I mean, I think that that is one of the easiest ways to go direct. So.
That is definitely key. And keeping in mind that you need to let people know what is different from other notaries in your notary. You don't have to bash on anyone, but like, for example, in my case, I'm like, hey, I'm bilingual. I speak two languages and I offer these and these services.
Mhm.
For remote online notarizations, I can do these and these verifications. And maybe they won't call you today or tomorrow, but in a month from now, the notary it's their trusted notary is not available.
Mhm.
So they call you and you just opened an opportunity for potential new client. From my social media, going back to that real quick,
Yeah.
I had entered the link to my bio. This is when I first started being so serious about my digital presence.
Mhm.
And somebody reached out, they filled out a form, and I got super excited. I'm like, oh my God, I just got my first notarization from the link. And it was actually another notary who moved out of state. And she referred me to her law firm. She
Mm,
sent me their contact information and every notarization related to that company, it goes through me first.
that's so
It's, I know. I know. I'm like, I love that girl
good.
forever.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, and that's that. I'm glad that you said that too, because like obviously, I like collaboration too, and so that was one of the biggest things where it's like if you're scared of reaching out to a different notary, like reach out to a different notary. It is unmatched how typically, sometimes you get a bad apple, but typically,
Yeah.
um, everybody's really, really open, and it's like, oh yeah, of course, like the first notary that I reached out to, I was like, I don't know, because we're like literally competitors. She's like, you want to go to coffee? I'll go over everything. I was like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. So, and then like now we refer work back to each other, consistently. So
Hmm.
it's I'm so glad that I did that.
I I hate seeing when we're like against each other. I'm like, we're on the same team. We're notaries. I learn from you, you learn from me. I literally have most of my followers. When I started, I was hoping to reach out to like potential clients,
Yeah.
but I've seen that most of the followers that I get are notaries
Hmm.
who or signing service companies. And I'm like, this is such a great community because there's so much going on every single day, and there's so much that you can learn from other notaries that you can apply to your business. It's not about competition, it's
Hmm.
about let's crush it together.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, because that's exactly like sometimes for me, I also get a good amount of notaries that come in, but that's kind of, that's my target. But it has been interesting because I almost get more work sometimes from other notaries
Yes.
than any title companies that I've ever, So it's like, okay, well, it's not exactly what I was expecting, but it works out, So
Yeah,
yeah, definitely like sometimes it takes tweaking your marketing though and speaking to a different, market based on what they are looking for. But yeah, that's the same thing. I get a lot of different.
definitely. There's always, when you have your marketing plan and you have everything mapped out and it's not working, there's
Mhm.
only potentially one or two pieces that you need to tweak and tighten up to start seeing results.
Yeah.
There's so many ways that you can do marketing. When I started doing marketing, I actually started doing mails,
Mm.
direct mails to like title companies, attorneys, law firms, and you name it. Anybody, construction companies that potentially were in the need of my service, I will target them. And sometimes I would receive calls from there, but not as much as digital marketing because everyone now has Instagram, everybody has Facebook, everyone has a LinkedIn account, everyone is on Google. So I can only highlight how important digital marketing is.
Mhm. Yeah, and like that's I was at a business event the other day, and like for any notary like that wants to get in front of, one of the cheat codes for me is going to conferences or like any of the events where there's going to be a lot of people, because even if it's not the industry that you think, like I went to a business mindset uh, uh, type of thing, and I met so many potential customers that like it just makes sense because within our industry, everybody needs a notary. They just don't know it yet. But I was doing videos of the conference, and so someone that I knew was like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Generating leads." Like that, like you take the video and you take the B-roll and then you put it on, but like that really does work because especially like it's fine to get in your car and go out and do the in-person. Like I think that that's important too. But the one to many, like
hmm
I mean, there's no way that I could sometimes the reels, even if you get in front of 100 views, that's 100 people that would have taken you like 3 days in your car to drive around to each individual person and be like, "Hi, my name's
Yeah.
Katie, I'm a notary." So, yeah, I like digital marketing.
Yeah, I'm big on that too. There's so many different ways that you can throw your business out there to people, whether it's TikTok, um, Reels, like you said, and even lives. There's so many questions that people need answers to, and having on one-on-one or, one-on-many to answer the questions, you can kill it. Especially if you have followers like title companies and law firms and all that stuff. I am big on real estate companies because that's just my where I'm familiar with. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I do also like real estate because I think sometimes that's the higher price points. But even at that yeah, yeah. Even at that business conference, as I was in the elevator, we were all kind of in the networking mindset. I was talking to a yacht broker. And so I don't know if you've ever worked with like yacht brokers, but they need documents notarized for the sale and transfer of the vessel. Like if it's a pretty, let's say there's a sailboat, it's over in Australia, someone needs to buy it in the United States. There's usually documents that needs to go through that. And he was like, "Oh, you can do that?" And I was like, "Yeah, even if they're in, Australia."
Mhm.
'Cause that happened to me the other day. And they were like, "Oh, okay, let me take your card." So it makes sense to do every market every single way. But just kind of get out there and start marketing.
Yes, emphasize. Start
Yeah.
marketing now.
Yeah.
There is a high impact on social media presence, and I'm never going to get sick of saying that. This is the time where everybody, little kids, everybody has a social media account. So
Mhm.
sponsor your post, throw a lot of the most recent hashtags that are viral,
Mhm.
audios, talk to your audience, try to have a an image out there. I was very uncomfortable with like talking and all doing all this stuff. So now my plan is to just be out there and expose it and for people to know me. That's the main goal. That's how you generate leads today.
Mhm. Yeah, and I wanted to thank you also for coming on here. I didn't know if you were like, I'm always like back and forth if people are nervous or not about coming on and like speaking, but you were, yeah, it was thank you for
Thank
coming
you.
on and everything. You did good. So my next question is, well, like obviously you started, so how did you push past getting kind of nervous about posting? Like did you sometimes people are like, "Well, I don't want to post and have no one look at it," or "I don't want to post and
Yeah.
have someone say, funny things about, funny
Yeah.
things about my business." Like, how do you combat that?
So that was me in the beginning. I didn't think that people were going to pay attention to me at all because I just felt like everybody was one step ahead of me. And then I just randomly started like posting, recording my screen and being like, "Hey, you should do this, you should do that." And people are like, "Oh my God, that's how," you know what I mean? And it would just open like this stressor for people and they will just reach out and I'm like, "Oh my God, I am helping so many people through posting just regular or like simple things to me." And that's how I started. I'm like, "Okay, I really need to put something together where notaries can come to me, let me know what their issue is, and if they don't know, I'll expose the issue and resolve it for them, and their business will skyrocket." I literally had one class last week. The next day, she woke up at like 6 in the morning to do the things that I told her that she should do.
Yeah.
She's already starting to get business. And I'm like, that you were stuck
Mhm.
because you just didn't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I think sometimes I mean, I've done the same thing where I'm like, I almost feel like I'm beating my head against the wall. Where it's like, okay, how do I fix this next? Like, how do I get to the next level? Or how do I get to the next, like, I have this obstacle. How do I? And sometimes it's just as simple as talking to someone, like someone within the community, and they're like, oh,
Yeah.
just text them that you need to get signed on earlier or whatever it may be, and I'm like, and that's the same thing as what I do too. Sometimes people that sign on to Pro Notary and they're like, how do I, they'll send me emails or like, how do I do XYZ? And I'm like, okay, well, you got to set up a text message reminder and an email sequence explaining how to get signed on.
Yeah.
Send over the YouTube of the walkthrough so that way they can watch it beforehand. And then it makes everything smoother. And I'm like, okay, I did it, and it is easier. And I'm, okay, good. So
Yeah.
problem solved. What else?
Ex-
Yeah. But that definitely does happen. And then as far as marketing, because like, do you do in person or like, I guess, do you do in person? How did you kind of combat? I think one of the biggest issues is people they're nervous about starting.
Yes. Some people just need you to push them a little bit, to overcome like that anxiety and fear of starting. To answer your first question, I do not do any in-person like, door knocking or whatnot to title companies because at the time I have enough clients to keep me busy.
Yeah.
But that is something that is definitely I'm op always open to. I do a lot. My focus is just digital, so I direct mail people. I call people sometimes here and there, and texting, social media, DMs. It does not ever get old. Everybody has their phone right next to them. If
Yeah.
I text you, you definitely have a notification from me. And you get curious, you're like, "Oh, private closings. Who's this? What do they want?" So that's why you definitely want to have a good image and a good presence. And every email, every text message, include your social medias on there. It adds credibility to your profile. Make sure that you're, on Alignable, LinkedIn, you're on Yelp, girl, everywhere.
Um,
It's
my, I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
My next question is, and I know I already know that you're really, really good at this, but as far as protecting client information, if you are posting online, like what is your advice to make sure that, there's always a little bit of a line in between our clients' information and then what we post online. So how do you kind of market what you're doing while also protecting client information?
Yeah, so usually if I'm like recording a video of it, I'll try to block the information with like a sticker or with text. But I usually try to explain what I do rather than showing it because I don't want to expose the image of my client and their information, the documents that they're signing. And keep in mind that as a notary, you need to protect the documentation with your soul.
Yes.
Um, there's no that's non-negotiable, and I definitely do my best to protect the that information by just not exposing so much. I just do the basics, like seller signing,
Yeah.
refi, this and that, and I try to block it with stickers related to what
Yeah.
I do,
Mhm.
and people just associate it, and they. They because of everything else that I post, they understand what the contents of the video that I'm blocking is.
Yes, yeah, and I think that that's something that's like, well, how am I supposed to market if I can't, we're a little bit we can't post all of the things that we actually are doing. And so sometimes people are like, well, how do I, but yeah, exactly, explaining stuff, redacting it, making little like heart stickers over it. And then like my other thing is uh for anyone watching, the important thing is to if you are doing videos of in-person signings or not in-person signings, but any of the like remote online notarization, the RONs, make sure that either your signers are aware and consent to then marketing that while also blocking everything. But honestly, like my best advice is to get a friend, get another notary, and then just do practices back and forth where it's like Jane Doe with some dummy documents, then take all of the marketing pictures that you could possibly want, because then you can be like, okay, smile, I'm taking a picture. And I've done that. I've done that where I'm like, all right, smile, I'm taking a picture, I'm doing a mock session, like, and then that way you can kind of direct the people, if it's like, okay, act like you're a client that is confused and I need to explain it to you. So there's ways around it that you can still market what you do while also protecting client information, because that's our job. And then this marketing is important, but you gotta, yeah. So, oh, you're on mute again.
I swear, these buttons. So yeah, I can definitely emphasize that having somebody that can do these mock signings with you, there's also platforms that offer that. Like Proof, you have like a robot doing a mock session with you, and you can do certain documents and record those, and that definitely helps people have a visual of how it works and what they need. Usually the main question is, what do I need to you need your ID and I need to see your face. You need to have a camera. That's all I need from you. Uh, and it answers a lot of questions to people because they're still used to the tradition way where a notary comes to them and it plays
Hmm.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I even if I send out emails, sometimes they don't like look at them. And so sometimes I ask my people that I use within the signing service or in general that they still call the client and just explain the process. Because sometimes I'll before I started doing all the groundwork, I would call the client because it would be like me and a witness and we're at the 2 o'clock time frame. And then I'm like, hey, where are you? And they're like, oh, I'm seeing from the computer. I have everything printed out. And I'm like, no, no, no. There's no printing involved. Like, go on to your email. And then, it creates the time frame of like you have to explain it to them and you have to wait for them to go
Yeah.
into their email. And so like just sometimes a quick call will make it so much easier for
Mhm.
the notarization process. Yeah.
Yes, definitely giving them a heads up of how it works. And sometimes when you have elder people, and this has happened to me a lot, I typically get on the phone with them when I send the notification session, and I still, like, if I have time, I
Yeah.
still go through it with them and step by step, especially if they're not very tech savvy and, they have difficulties getting to me.
Mhm.
I guide them step by step, and they are so appreciative of this. They value it so much, and they give you great reviews with the signing
Mhm.
service or the title company, and that's all you need to be running.
Yeah. Yeah. And then that's the other thing is like after you get the initial clients, typically, word of mouth referrals. So you won't always have to, I mean, marketing is always important, but you won't always typically have to do it as long as you get the framework.
Yes.
Um, but I wanted to thank you for coming on,
Thank you.
and then plug yourself. So where can we find you? What are your handles and what's your website?
Yes, definitely. You can find me anywhere as private closings. And reach out to me. I'll add you to my list of notaries. We'll have a chat. And I love staying connected with you guys because as much as you guys learn from me, I learned from you and your experiences and different rules in different states. So we're a great community and we have a great impact in the industry, not only real estate, there's so much other industries that we have a great impact in, and it's definitely great to have a team around.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I'm going to go ahead and end this webinar. But thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
You
Bye.
too.